Islamists are late to this party. This whole process is being driven by young progressives who want a more moderate, tolerant, progressive, democratic future, in the sense of democracy as we really mean it, which is to say liberal democracy. Okay, I didn't see it that way and wrote as much at the time. And lo and behold, just like the Bolsheviks overtook the Mensheviks and Robespierre overtook Lafayette, you began to see the Muslim Brotherhood come in. Then the Brotherhood offered this promise that it was not going to contest the presidential election. You remember this promise? They said, we will not contest the presidential election. Well, you already knew that things were going in a very bad way when, as soon as they saw the opportunity, they broke the promise. Then we had the election, and by the way, here I very politely disagree with Rob Satloff, for whom I have real respect. In that I think he somewhat underestimates, or actually dramatically underestimates, the strength of Islamist political parties throughout the entire Middle East. I mean, if the resolution is that if we're going to go through this process, victory of Islamist parties is inevitable, I think the evidence is that, in fact, it is.
I agree with him.
It is inevitable. And so then we move along, we have the election, and people say, well, you see, the Islamists have won, but Mohammed Morsi is this sort of little non-entity of a character. No one takes him seriously. And by the way, holding the real reins of power is the army.
Many Muslim majority countries, including the largest, Indonesia, in which Muslims participate in democracy. You have Islamist political parties participate within that system. So I think when we have discussions, especially these days, given the turmoil in the Middle East, we're often narrowly focused on the 20% of the Muslim world, and 6 in 10 of Muslims live in the Asia-Pacific region, and we need to keep their experiences in mind and think about the depth of their experiences. But the main point, which I think we all agree on, is that there's nothing inherently anti-democratic about Islam in terms of political culture, anything more than Christianity or Judaism or Confucianism. So I think we essentially agree with that point. Second, and this is where we disagree, is that given the Middle East, which I think what we're going to focus on today, the crushing social, demographic, economic, political pressures these societies are facing, change is coming. And I've lived in this part of the world for 5 years, back in the 1990s. I go back regularly. And I support the motion as it's currently crafted, in part because I think it's like debating gravity. You see sort of the early results in some, most, but not all, if you look at Libya, of the early elections here. To me, it seemed like a necessary first stage of this debate, which we're seeing unfold in Egypt. And it's quite complicated, and yes, Islamist political forces, some of them, but not all of them, will try to set the table, try to limit public debate and open debate. And they'll try to impose a model that closes off pluralism. But I don't see this in Egypt today as a realistic possibility. As we sit here today, this clash is spilling over into the streets, but it's also largely been in politics and in the judiciary. So I think there's this desire for pluralism, and that political Islamist forces, I think quite naturally in this early stage, will be part of that, whether they'll win majorities or not. But the main point is that I think it is necessary, and the question of avoiding it, I don't know.
You see, the answer is an obvious no. My answer, Brett's answer, and mine are grounded in experience and fact. Ruel and Brian's answer is grounded in hope and assertion. We have experiences. Iran, Gaza, Sudan, Lebanon, Turkey, and none of these countries have all the attributes of democracy occurred when Islamists were in power. No rotations in power in any of them. Rights are recognized only in some of them, to varying degree. In some of them, no free and open elections have occurred, and some people are not even recognized as the sources of authority. Are Islamists necessarily terrorists? Absolutely not. But will Islamism ever surrender power if it loses elections? We simply don't know. And if we cannot be confident about that fundamental fact, then how can we be confident that their election is essential for democracy? It hasn't happened. We have no idea whether the first set of elections in Egypt in 7,000 years is in fact the last set of elections. So, let me just quote one final citation in closing from the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood's website before they realized that everyone was reading it and instead learned the art of Western PR. Quote, if democracy means that people decide who leads them, then we accept it. If it means that people can change the laws of Allah and follow what they wish to follow, then it is not acceptable. That's the heart of the story, and it is not the path to democracy.